New hope this morning with the FDA authorizing the first COVID pill that patients can take at home.
And World News Tonight anchor David Muir asked President Biden about the plan for those pills in his exclusive interview at the White House. Plus, more on the administration's plan to battle the Omicron surge and whether Biden's team should have been better prepared.
I want to get right to Omicron. As you know now, the dominant strain here in the U.S., Dr. Fauci now says it could account for up to 90% of all new cases by just next week. The CDC now warning Americans that we could see peaks that we haven't seen so far in this pandemic. I know just before we sat down here, the FDA has now authorized the first COVID pill, the first antiviral pill from Pfizer. 89% effective at preventing hospitalizations and death. The obvious question for you, Mr. President, is how much has the government purchased? How much is ready to go right away?
We've purchased several million already, but here's right away, I think don't hold me the number, I think it may be 20 million, but a lot of pills, all they can make so far. But you know, I hope we don't get there, because if people get the shots, they get their 2 shots and a booster, they're not going to be in a position where they're going to need such a pill.
Do you have any idea how quickly the American people will actually see these pills? How soon we're going to be able to get them to hospitals that are already seeing patients?
The answer is, I think it'll be a matter of weeks to a month to get the pills, but it won't be enough to get to all the hospitals. We ordered a lot more of those pills. We now have to order millions of those pills.
You told the American people just yesterday that we are prepared for what's coming. But 3 days before Christmas, if you look out across the country, you see it everywhere, these long lines, people waiting for hours outside in the cold just to get tested, to be reassured before they spend time with their family. If you go to the pharmacy, we hear this over and over again, empty shelves, no test kits. Is that a failure?
No, I don't think it's a failure. I think it's, you could argue that we should have known a year ago, 6 months ago, 2 months ago, a month ago. I've ordered 500 million of the pills. 500 million pills, 500 million test kits that are going to be available to be sent to every home in America if anybody wants them. But the answer is, yeah, I wish I had thought about ordering 500 million pills 2 months ago before COVID hit here.
But we're nearly 2 years into this pandemic. You're a year into the presidency. Empty shelves and no test kits in some places, 3 days before Christmas when it's so important. Is that good enough?
No, nothing's been good enough. But look, we're in a situation now where we have 200 million people fully vaccinated. 200 million people fully vaccinated. And we have more than that who have had one shot, at least one shot. And they're getting these booster shots as well.
I know you're going to get together with the children and the grandchildren for the holiday. How will that work? Will you all rapid test before you're together?
Yes. I'm doing it almost every day.
And is your hope that for the millions of Americans who are trying to get tests before the holiday that they'll be able to do what?
Well, they won't be able to do it. The number of tests available, I've ordered 500 million of them for the United States to be sent to everybody who wants a test can have one sent to home.
And that's January,
That's
right?
in January.
And so will they have those rapid tests by when? By mid-January, by the end of January?
The answer is, the expectation is it'll be by the rapid tests will start going out in the beginning of January because they're being produced now.
Let me ask you about what we heard from Israel overnight. They're already moving forward with a second booster now. So this would be the 4th shot for people 60 and older and for frontline medical workers. Is that something you're considering?
I listened to the scientists. And I'm sure the scientists are paying very close attention to that. There may be a need for another booster, but that remains to be seen.
So it remains a possibility?
It remains a possibility.
I want to ask you about something I asked weeks before the election when we sat down. You said you would absolutely serve 8 years if elected. Do you plan to run for re-election?
Yes. But look, I'm a great respecter of fate. Fate has intervened in my life many, many times. If I'm in the health I'm in now, if I'm in good health, then in fact, I would run again.
And if that means a rematch against Donald Trump?
You're trying to tempt me now. Sure. Why would I not run against Donald Trump, even the nominee? That'd increase the prospect of running.
Let's bring in our chief Washington correspondent, John Carl, to dig in on some takeaways from that exclusive interview. John, good morning. One headline to come out of this: the president says he will be running again in 2024.
I thought that answer, Will, was really interesting. He has said before that he fully intends to run again. His press secretary has said that when asked. But he said yes, but. Talked about fate. And again, he's mentioned fate in the past before, but he tied it directly to his health. And of course, Biden would be 81 years old on Election Day in 2024. He'd be 82 when sworn in, if he was sworn into a second term. And this question of whether or not Biden is in a position to run for re-election hangs over the Democrats, looms as large, every bit as large, maybe even larger for Democrats than the question of whether or not Donald Trump will run for Republicans. Because no serious Democrat's going to challenge him for the nomination if he runs again, but they have to be prepared to run. Anybody who's thinking about running has to be prepared to run well in advance of him making a decision.
That's looking ahead. In the here and now, it's COVID. And when pressed on the lack of COVID tests in many parts of the country, the president also conceded that, quote, nothing's been good enough. But he also defended his administration's response and their record on COVID. What'd you make of that exchange?
Well, he was quite defensive, especially on the question of testing. And look, the bottom line, Will, is that testing has been a failure. I mean, I first started asking questions about testing of the Trump administration nearly 2 years ago. It was a colossal failure back then. There have been dramatic improvements. But if you go back to early September, President Biden said that there would be some 300 million test kits bought so that everybody could afford one regardless of income. That is still not the case in America today.
Those tests, the president said, will be going out in the beginning of January. John Carl, thank you so much.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.